Hello YouTube, Mr. Mags here. Today I will be asking the question, what if the Johto region had brand new gym leaders? Now I've said several times on this channel that I genuinely believe that the Johto region's gym leaders are overall pretty underwhelming. Obviously, you have your standouts like Whitney, but outside of her and kind of Claire to an extent, I think a lot of the others are just lacking in a lot of potential. I feel like their levels are a lot lower than they should be. They more often than not don't have as many Pokemon as I feel they should on their team, and most egregiously, almost none of them actually use Johto Pokemon. Um, yeah, that is definitely the biggest sin of the region. So I thought I would take a stab at creating my own gym leaders for Johto. So starting off with the criteria for how I develop these teams, no repeat types of current Johto gym leaders. So I can't use Dragon, Normal, Ghost, etc. Even though I do think that a lot of the gym leaders in the region could basically use, complete overhauls. Faulkner as the prime example. I think there is a there is a very good potential flying gym in Johto in there, but because Faulkner's already a Johto gym leader, I can't use that type in the Johto gym leaders I create. But any gym leaders, or sorry, any types that are associated with Elite Four members or the gym leaders in the Kanto part of the Johto games, those are fair game. All possible regional forms are available. This was more relevant in my previous video uh, where I did the Kanto gym leaders and there were a lot of holes that regional forms helped fill. I luckily didn't have to use any of the regional forms in this Johto video. However, regional evolutions are only allowed for rematches. Stuff like Mamoswine, Porygon Z, Magmortar, that kind of thing. Um, I'll still be able to use Scizor and other Pokemon that are evolved forms of Kanto Pokemon, but ones that were introduced in future generations, including uh, like regional variant evolutions like Sneasler, Clodsire, that kind of thing. Those will only be relegated to post-game rematch fights that'll also develop uh, in the second half of this video. Yeah, like I said, luckily this time I didn't have to use regional forms. I just wanted to have them as an option just in case. Next, the teams are created independent of any canon teams or teams previously made in this series. So I'm not going to say a person just can't have a certain Pokemon just because it is used in an actual Johto game, or if it was used on a team previous in this series. It might have subconsciously informed certain decisions, but basically all Pokemon in the Johto and Kanto games, or at least up to that point, are available. Next, it is assumed that the story will follow a similar but slightly modified path to that of the canon Johto games. The main differences that are in this case are the fact that the level curve is going to be ramped way up because that is the biggest issue with Johto is that the wild Pokemon and trainer battles kind of throughout the entire region are egregiously low. Even by the time you get to the eighth gym leader, all the Pokemon around that are still in like high 20s. It's very bizarre. So that is kind of the main issue that I'm fixing here is uh, not only having the gym leaders ramp up in battle, but it's in level, but it's also assuming that the Team Rocket grunts are going to be higher level, just the Pokemon and trainers kind of throughout will be higher level. But also, I'm going to be basically saying that unlike in the original Joe games where you can basically fight Chuck, Price, or Jasmine in any order, um, I'm saying that I'm having a specific order that you have to fight them in. And there's going to be a couple of other minor changes throughout that I'll also mention. And lastly, the gym leader's overall strength will be based on, but ultimately stronger than, the canon gym leaders in Johto. And by this, I mean that I tried to keep the average base stat total of the entire team similar to that of the gym leader that is normally in that spot. Um, The ace might be slightly stronger or slightly weaker, depending on the trainer. But I tried to keep it as close to the average base set total as possible. That being said, I did up the levels of every single gym leader. I added a couple of extra Pokemon throughout just to make the gym challenge feel a little more, well, challenging. All right, let's get started with my new Johto gym leaders. Starting off, first we have Vincent, the poison gym leader. Vincent, I wanted to have a trainer that had a name kind of like Venom, with VEN and start saying, I don't know, this guy looks like a Vincent. So Vincent. And something, I don't know, in my head, something kind of works about having like a carnival or a circus theme with poison types. I don't know why, but that just kind of works in my head. So we have Zubat at level 12 and Quillfish at level 14. So two things about this team. First, I know I just said that I wanted to prioritize these trainers having Johto Pokemon. Um, and Zubat, as it is not a Johto Pokemon, but it does evolve into Crobat, who is a Johto Pokemon. Um, but also, I just really wanted to have at least one Pokemon on this team that would be immune to ground. Um, in my head, I'm thinking that there's either a trade for a Wooper or some other ground type to potentially help, like you have Rocky to help with potentially with Faulkner in the base Johto games. So even if you do make that trade, or if Wooper or some other ground type is available for you to catch, you're still not going to be able to just sweep through his team with ground moves. There's still one Pokemon that is actually immune to that type. I considered having Spinarak there to have a similar effect with it being at least not weak to ground with his bug typing, but I figure there's going to be a lot of other opportunities for Spinarak to be around. Um, yeah, there might be some other gym trainers in his gym that have Spinarak. Then I don't know. I just felt like Zubat work best here. And then Quillfish, the other thing I wanted to point out here is that Quillfish is technically the single strongest first gym leader ace as far as ones that are either like a single stage Pokemon or not fully evolved Pokemon. I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Eldegoss in Galar, I'm pretty sure Eldegoss is base that total is slightly higher than Quillfish. Um, so Quillfish might be second strongest. I can't think of any others that are actually stronger. That being said, this early in the game, it's what 450 base stat total isn't like that crazy. It's gonna outspeed a lot of your stuff, but it won't be able to hit super hard. It's not super bulky. The the best poison move it can use outside of some crazy TM would be Poison Sting. The best water move it could use is Water Gun. Like maybe Supersonic or something else. But I really don't think Quillfish, even though it is technically a fairly strong Pokemon, uh, for this point in the game. I don't think it is some overwhelming force that the player cannot get past, especially when there is a potential trade Pokemon specifically to take it out. And I think Wooper would be a good option here since its ground typing would be super effective into poison and its water absorbability will be able to be able to literally absorb the water moves it can use. So it's a pretty good check into Quillfish if you decide to use it. Next, second gym leader, Brian. I like the idea of the psychic gym leader's name being an anagram of brain. And one thing that I kind of wanted to start doing with this region, I don't know if I'll do this every single time, but one thing I really liked in Gen 4 and even more so in Gen 5 is when the gym leaders feel like they exist in the region as a whole and not just, oh, they're in their gym. That's where they are. You like you go in their gym, you fight them, and then they don't really exist anywhere else in the region outside of their gym. So I think it'd be kind of cool if for pretty much every single gym leader, at least, going forward to an extent, um, you don't just get to the town and, oh, you fight the gym, you can leave. You actually have to either go find them or interact with them in some other capacity before you actually fight them. And with Brian, his first Pokemon is a Slowpoke at level 16. His second Pokemon is a Smoochum at level 15. I know Smoochum is not the strongest Pokemon, but it is a lot stronger than Kakuna, which Bugsy typically had as a second gym, so I think that's fine. And then Girafarig, level 18. I like the idea of his ace being a part normal type. There is at least one ghost type available in some ghost type moves, like Lick and Astonish. Um, so I like the idea of his ace is not technically as strong as Scyther typically is, but it still has pretty good speed and attacking stats. And then with that normal typing is not weak to the ghost moves that you might think you can sweep his team with. So I think it's a decent switch in for Scyther. Going back to Slowpoke, since it is, I'm kind of deeming it as his like secondary ace, or his like, pseudo ace, with it being level 16, his second strongest Pokemon. I kind of like the idea of once you get to Azalea Town in the base Johto games, when you get there, you have to do everything in Slowpoke well, which Team Rocket is there specifically trying to mine Slowpoke tails they can sell. So I think it'd be cool once you get there, it's revealed that Brian's Slowpoke was kidnapped by Team Rocket. So you have to follow him down to Slowpoke. Well, Kurt can still be involved. But I think it'd be kind of cool if you get to the end, you see Brian taking on like three grunts, and then you have to take on Proton. And Proton, the Slowpoke that he has, is actually Brian's Slowpoke. So yeah, I personally really like that idea. I was gonna have him have Slowpoke regardless, but since Slowpoke evolves into Slowking, who is a Gen 2 Pokemon similar to Zubat, but once I gave him Slowpoke, it gave me the great idea to have him involved in the Slowpoke well storyline. So I think that's a lot of fun. Next, third gem, Hana, not Hannah, that's spelled differently. Hana is a Japanese like rose flower type thing. And yeah, maybe her name can actually be Hannah, just spelled like Hana, but I don't know. I feel like Hana just kind of fits this character here. Um, she is the grass gym leader, level 22 Sunflora, 21 Skiploom, and 24 Blossom. This is actually a good amount stronger than Whitney typically is. However, I think it's fine because, first of all, Whitney is extremely tough just because of the way her mill tank functioned. Yes, it was only level 20 in the Gen 2 game, but actually level 19 in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, yet still a massive threat. Um, just because it is way faster than you'd expect. It can build up damage with rollout while you can't, take her out because you are either infatuated by attract, or just if she's not using rollout, she's flinching you with stomp, and then reviving herself with a milk drink. So there's just a lot going on with her milk tank specifically, on top of it being just normal being a hard type to take it down. It only has the one weakness. And if you don't specifically trade for Muscle the Machop, there's a decent chance that you're not going to have a good fighting type option to take her out. Whereas Grass type is a much easier type to take down. Statistically, at least a third of the trainers who get up to this point will have at least one fire type on their team with Quilava at this point. Um, Maybe in if it is a big enough problem, maybe in the place where Muscle is usually the trade Pokemon that can be another fire type like a Magby or an ice type, like Swinub or Delibird, or some, maybe not Delibird since it wouldn't really know any ice moves, or maybe Smoochum. I don't know. I just know that I personally feel like Blossom at level 24 really isn't going to be that big of a deal. It will probably still be annoying. Blossom is still kind of fat. Like I think it's like 60 base speed, which, at level 24 still might be able to outspeed some things on your team. It will be able to put you to sleep. It could still potentially. heal itself with either Moonlight, yeah, I think the word Moonlight, or even just, probably the team she gives out Giga Drain. But, even though it might still be a little annoying to take out, there are still a lot more types to take it out than typically Whitney's team with, with only fighting type there, whereas here you have flying, fire, ice, and poison. And you should have a good amount of those Pokemon on your team in order to take her out. Um, but the reason why I think it's really cool for her to be a grass gym leader is that, if I'm not mistaken, uh, in base Goldenrod, in order to to get past Sudowoodo, you have to go to the flower shop in order to get the water pail or Squirtle, whatever they call it. I know it's Whalmer Pail in Gen 3. I think it's a squirt bottle. It looks like a little Squirtle. Um, the whatever it's called in this game. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the person that gives you I'll call it squirt bottle, is actually Whitney's sister. So there's already a connection between the gym leader and the flower shop anyway. So why not emphasize it even further by having have to visit the flower shop first in order to, have her go to her gym, or have her like, no, just I think there's, something. I think there's something there with the flower shop and her being a grass type. I like that idea. Next, fourth gym leader, who is a dark type trainer named Zuki. And yes, this is actually the kimono girl who has Umbreon in base, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. This kind of came because I wanted the fourth gym leader to be a dark trainer in Ecruteak City, and I wanted the ace to be an Umbreon. I'm like, why not just have it be the kimono girl? Like, she's already there. She already is a prominent trainer in that city with an Umbreon. Why not just upgrade her to gym leader? The other kimono girls can still be around, and she can still be involved in that gauntlet after you beat all eight gym leaders in that gauntlet with all the different kimono girls. I guess in that case, she would only use Umbreon. Maybe hers will be slightly stronger than the rest, but I like the idea of her, of her actually being a gym leader. And she has Murkrow at 25, Sneasel at 25, and then Umbreon at 28. Uh, Once again, I think four levels between gym leaders to me just feels right. Actually, in base gold and silver, they actually go up by five levels. Um, Whitney is level 20, and then Morty is 25. So for a four level jump doesn't seem too crazy, especially like I said, when you have the trainers throughout um, going up in levels as well. And I couldn't decide between Murkrow and Sneasel as her like secondary ace. So since Umbreon is a pretty powerful Pokemon, it actually has a good amount higher base stat total than Gengar typically does. I decided just to make them both level 25. I think it also helps that instead of having four Pokemon on Morty's team, which I don't really understand why there's four Pokemon and none of them are mischievous, but well, whatever. Beat that horse to death. Having only three Pokemon with Umbreon being a lot stronger than the rest still kind of keeps the overall average base stat total similar to that of Morty's. Next up, Bernie, the fifth gym leader, who's obviously a fire type gym leader. And like I said, you're typically in gold and silver, you can fight Chuck, Price, or Jasmine in any order. So they're all like in the low 30s, with Jasmine capping at 35, despite in gold and silver, Price technically being the seventh gym leader, even though his Pokemon are go up to 31, which they changed slightly in Heart Gold Soul Silver to go up to 34, but I feel that's still not strong enough for the seventh gym leader, but whatever. Um, they opened up the rest, pretty much the rest of Johto to you, and then didn't really ramp up the gym leaders nearly as much as they should have, which is odd coming off of Yellow, where they ramped up Sabrina and Koga up to level 50. I think that's a little too much, but surely there's somewhere in the middle for both of them to be. But regardless, Bernie, his ace being level 34, which is actually a six level jump above Umbreon, I think makes sense. Um, because you go to Olivine and then you're tasked with going to Cinnabar. And I think instead of just Cinnabar, I think it'd be kind of cool if um his gym is actually positioned essentially where the Safari Zone is in um in Heart Gold Soul Silver. So like you go, you know, uh all throughout that like kind of cliff path up. There's a good amount of trainers, a good amount of strong Pokemon. That's actually one of the best places to train in Heart Gold Soul Silver as it is, since those Pokemon are actually a good I would consider them appropriately leveled for that point in the game, whereas a lot of the other Pokemon are way under leveled. So since that level exists in a Johto game, I think it makes sense to utilize it. So yeah, I think him being at 34 makes sense. So we have level 32 Magmar, and clearly by his design, I'm kind of envisioning Magmar as being not his ace, but definitely a favorite of his, similar to how Crasher Wake is dressed like a Gyarados, and he has his Gyarados has his second strongest. You have Cynthia, who is dressed to look similar to a Lucario, and she clearly likes the Lucario that is on her team. I like the idea of I like it when a gym leader can, you know, clearly has a favorite, but that favorite is not their ace. That just kind of that's fun storytelling. So Magmar 32, Magcargo at 31, and Houndoom at 34. And I'm okay once again with Magmar not being a Johto specific Pokemon since it evolves from Magby, who is a Johto Pokemon. And next, Pacifica, the water gym leader, and another four level gap, especially since you have everything up with Lake of Rage and you have all the stuff in the Team Rocket base that is there in Mahogany Town, and those rocket trainers will at least be a little higher up. And I'm imagining the Ariana boss fight in there will be around level 36, which is the ladder between Houndoom and her Politoed here at 38. So she has a Azumarill at 35, Octillery at 36, Mantine at 36. I like them both being at 36 since they're since Mantine evolves by having a Rambrain on your team. So I think it's fun to kind of have them be basically equals. And then Politoed at 38. Politoed is one of those Pokemon that it is crazy to me that it wasn't anywhere significant, really anywhere at all in base Johto. I can't even think of a rematch team that is on. I don't think Misty's is one in a rematch team. I know the rival doesn't use one. Like, I can't think of a single place where you would even see one on a trainer team anywhere. So I like the idea of her having it as her ace. And seventh, we have Samson, the electric gym leader. I like that pun, Samp, amp, like electricity amp, Samson. So, um, here's kind of what I'm thinking as like the through line for why you have to face these gym leaders in a specific order. So when you get to Olivine City, I think you don't even have access to Surf yet. Um, in base Johto, you get Surf after you do a little side quest in the Kimono Girls, I guess, dance studio. Um, After you do that, you get Surf from the owner. However, I think like if something similar can happen, maybe you get some other reward. You don't actually get Surf until you first talk to this guy who is up in the lighthouse. So you get to the lighthouse, you get to the very top, and he tells you like he maybe he was a retired gym leader or maybe he used to be a much better trainer than he is now before his Ampharos volunteered to take over after the lighthouse bulb went out or something like that. And that was maybe like 10 plus years ago. But now that Ampharos is getting sick and can't really keep this up anymore, you are now tasked with getting the medicine to to help Ampharos like in the base games. Once you battle the gym leader and get that medicine and come back here, um, after getting surf from him in order to actually go down to Cianwood, you bring in the medicine. Now he's like, well, we have this medicine. Here's Ampharos and keep going for a little bit longer, but Ampharos is still ready to retire, so we need to actually fix the lighthouse. He's like, I heard that there's uh, a place in Mahogany Town that might have the parts we need in order to fix the lighthouse. So you can now go to Mahogany Town, which up to this point has been blocked off to you that you can't surf, and I kind of picturing something about Mount Mortar is blocked off. So you can probably go east of Aquatique City, but you can't actually get to Mahogany Town until this happens. So you go to Mahogany Town, all the stuff with like a rage, and then you get to the shop that you think this part is in, and it turns out that shop is actually ran by Team Rocket. So you go down, the Lance or whatever the champion can still help you, um, in that Team Rocket side quest. And then at the end of that, the champion will give you that part. Then you fight the gym leader in the town, and then you go back and fight and give the part to Samson. He fixes the lighthouse, and then he rewards you by basically coming back to the gym leader of that town. So, all that to say, he is now the seventh gym leader. So, he has a Lantern at level 38, a Raichu at 36, Electabuzz at 36, which once again, both of them evolve from Gen 2 Pokemon, and then Ampharos at level 40. And I think in this case, a two-level gap makes sense between Pacifica and Ampharos, since there's not really a lot of extra battles to be done between the Mahogany Gym and the Olivine Gym, um, since the Team Rocket subplot takes place before the you do the sixth gym, and at least in base Johto, which I do like, the Olivine City Gym doesn't actually have any gym trainers in it. I think level 40 for Ampharos makes sense. But then you have the entirety of the rest of the Team Rocket subplot in Goldenrod City. And I like the idea of there being more of a gap between the Mahogany City Team Rocket base and then the Goldenrod City Team Rocket stuff. There being at least one extra gym in between there just kind of helps, space that out a little better. So then you do all that. You have Petrol and probably Proton be around level 42. You have the Ariana fight be around level 44. And then Archer be level 45 or 46. So that way, by the time you get to the eighth gym leader, Sanders, who is a ground gym leader, he can be all the way up at 48. There's also a rival fight in there as well. It can also be level 44 to 46, somewhere in 45. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Even though you fight Ariana after him, I think him being a little higher than her makes sense. Um, so yeah, there's just a lot of trainers you can fight in that area. And also I'm kind of envisioning there being something, you know, better than the Pokénav, in order to rematch trainers, something like the Versus Seeker or something, or not the Pokénav, the Poké Radio, whatever they call it in Gen 2. Um, of something more similar to the Pokénav uh from Gen 3, where you can rematch trainers at a more consistent rate somehow. So even if 48 is a little too strong for you, that um you know you can train up to get here. And I also imagine that Sanders, maybe you have to find him in the what's it called, the Dragon's Den or whatever they end up calling it in this game. You fight him there first, and then you find him there, and then you battle him in the gym. So he has a Donphin level 46, Quagsire 43, Gligar 41, Piloswine 45, and a Steelite level 48. Typically, Claire only has four Pokemon, so I thought, since there are a lot of great ground types in the region, it just felt good for Giovanni to have five Pokemon. I also mirrored that with Avery back in that video, or sorry, Adrian. Yeah, Adrian in that video. Avery actually would have been a good name too. Anyway, um, I wanted him to also have five Pokemon, but Quagsire and Gligar aren't the strongest Pokemon, so I think it kind of balances out. But his Gligar is still on is a bit stronger than the previous gym leader. Okay, so I originally wasn't sure if I was gonna do what I'm about to do, but since um the the original Gold and Silver, you do fight the Kanto gym leaders after you do everything with the Elite Four. I thought it'd be fun if I also created, new Kanto gym leaders here as well. Um, yeah, I'm kind of imagining the Elite Four going up to like starting at level 52 and going up to 58, and then the champion would be level like 62, 64, somewhere around there. So that way, when you get to Kanto, I think it makes sense for them to be slightly weaker than the champion actually is in this game. Although, like usually in the base Johto, like in Gold and Silver, they are still a little weaker than Lance. But Lance was only level 50, so you have Sabrina at like level 48, which is ridiculous. There's a couple that get up a little higher, but most of them are well lower than they should be at that point. So I think having them all be around the same level as a theoretical fourth Elite Four member at 58, I think that makes sense. So, um, if you haven't seen my previous video where I did where I made new Kanto gym leaders, I highly recommend watching that video before um, before proceeding here because most of those gym leaders will be the same ones here. Just, that also kind of uh, helped me, confirm that I wanted to do that since I'd already made a bunch of new Kanto gym leaders. I kind of wanted to, see how they were, 2 to 3 years later, depending on the time between games. So after that, I'll say 3 year time skip. We still have Jane, who basically, leveled up from a lass to a beauty. She's the normal gym leader with a Kangaskhan level 57, Lickitung 55, which Lickitung was her previous ace in her initial fight, but now Lickitung is kind of, it got power crept a little bit by its other normal types available. Um, Stantler level 54, Ursaring 56, and Porygon 2 58. Porygon 2 is kind of a reference to an idea I originally had for Jane back in my Kanto video to have Porygon as her ace, but I ultimately went with Lickitung. But I think either could have worked there, so I went with Porygon 2 as the ace here. And for a lot of these, um, I know that Kanto does have a ton of really good normal types. Obviously, I don't have Tauros, I don't have Snorlax. Even Wigglytuff, I think could work here. Since it is uh, a Johto game, and especially since there are a good amount of good normal type Pokemon in Johto, I still wanted to kind of, you know, to have a good mix of Kanto and Johto Pokemon for all of these gym leaders, but especially her. They wanted to say, oh, she has to have Tauros, or you have to have Snorlax because she's in Kanto. Like I like Ursaring a lot. I like the potential that Stantler has, especially since it can evolve now. So yeah, I like a good mix of Kanto and Johto Pokemon for all these gym leaders. And I did decide to cap them at only five Pokemon. They are still kind of acting as gym leaders. And spoiler alert, I will be giving them all rematch teams anyway, so I think them only having five Pokemon here, I think that's fine. Next, Evelyn, you got a bit older now. Unfortunately, there still aren't a ton of new ghost types to work with. I had to pull another regional form in order to even or have four ghost types as is. But she still has her Alolan Marowak at 57 as her pseudo ace, Galarian Corsola at 55, a regular Marowak at 54, Like I said, there weren't enough ghost types to go around. And I like the idea of her having two Marowaks, Mischievous at 56, and then her Gengar at 58. Next, Dan, who is still Steel Gym Leader. And there's, now are a couple of more steel types to work with. However, because I'd already used Steelix in the ground gym leader, which I know that Jasmine typically uses Steelix, but I think it's strong enough to be the ace of an eighth gym leader, especially when there are five Pokemon on that team. Because there is, I already used Steelix and I'm going to use Scizor in just a little bit. I did have to still use some regional variants, but I think a Alolan Dugtrio and Sandslash still fit him well. So we have Alolan Dugtrio 57 as a pseudo ace, Magneton 55, Fortress 54, Alolan Sandslash 56, and Skarmory at 58. And just a fun fact about this team, it doesn't really matter, but just I find this interesting. Skarmory, Sandslash, Magneton, and Fortress all have the same base stat total of 465. I find that very funny. If anything, Dugtrio is actually kind of the outlier. It's a little weaker. I think 430-ish. No, it doesn't really, it doesn't matter. It's just, I don't know. I find that interesting that most of the steel types introduced in Gen 2 all had the same base set total. So I find that fun. Next, Koichi is still a gym leader, and he has Hitmontop, Hitmonchan, and Hitmonlee all at 55, Primeape at 57, and Heracross at 58. I'm so glad that Heracross is here now because before, if you did watch my last video, I essentially had to have something like a Mega Starmie be his Mega Pokemon because outside of kind of Pinsir, which I didn't really love the fact that it became a flying type, I felt like it didn't really like fit him anymore. There weren't any, literally zero fighting type mega evolutions in Kanto. So I had to do something like Mega Starmie, who is also not a fighting type, in order to give him a mega. So now that Heracross can mega evolve, I also do think it still makes sense for it to be his ace since it is, outside of Machamp, the best fighting type Pokemon available for him. Next, Thor. Thor the bug gym leader. We have Pinsir at 57, Yanma at 55, Shuckle at 54, Venomoth at 56, and now Scizor at 58. Previously, I had Pinsir be his ace throughout, but since this is now the Johto, the Johto games, I wanted his ace to now be Scizor, who is the other steel type I was alluding to that Dan couldn't have, but I still think it makes just a little more sense on Thor's team. And we have now Brock as a gym leader in in Kanto. Um, in previous video, I had Mina, who was the fairy specialist from Alola, who is for some reason present the in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee as a fairy trainer. So because I wanted a fairy gym leader in Kanto and she was around, I made her the gym leader. But between with the time between games, I think she decided she wanted to go back to her home region of Alola, and because of that, there is now at least one spot available. So I think it makes sense to bring in one that kind of already existed with Brock. I wanted a rock gym leader in. I kind of wanted a rock gym leader in Johto. I kind of wanted Sudowoodo to be the ace, but I just couldn't fit it cleanly anywhere. Um, and I just felt like it worked better on a team like this. So, maybe now Koichi is the actual gym leader um, of Saffron City. Maybe Brock moved in either in Pewter City and Jane now moved to Celadon or something, or maybe Brock just went to Celadon. But regardless, he is now the Rock gym leader in Kanto. Um, And once again, I basically made the team first and then decide later to give him Brock to make it Brock. So he doesn't have his Onyx here, but I think it's fine. I think Onyx is just a little too weak considering, the rest of the team here. So we have Golem at 55, Omastar and Kabutops at 57, Sudowoodo at 54, and then Aerodactyl at 58. So all three fossils kind of, like Aerodactyl as the ace, and then the other two fossils as kind of both dual pseudo aces. Now, in the previous video, I did have Adrian being the flying gym leader. His ace was Aerodactyl, but I have a even better idea for him, which we'll get to in just a second. So, Brock is actually not the only new gym leader in Kanto this time. Last time I had Lorelai be the ice gym leader, who was the seventh gym leader. And I think between regions, between games, she either retired or became an Elite Four member or something happened. I'm not going to theory craft her team since I basically use a lot of the Pokemon that are available for her, like Piloswine and Jinx and something else we'll get into in just a second. I already used a lot of her potential options on other teams, but yeah. Regardless, she's not a gym leader in this region anymore. I think it'd be fun if Claire came to be the dragon gym leader in Kanto. Maybe there's some lore about Lance seeing potential in her and wanting to send her to the other region just to, help hone her skills. And while she's there, she became strong enough to fill the void that was left when Lorelai stopped being a gym leader, and she became a gym leader herself. And because she is kind of the seventh gym leader in the region, you can probably fight any of the first seven in any order. But I'm still kind of like the idea of Claire kind of setting herself apart by being one level above the rest of them. So we have Alolan Exeggutor at 57. Again, there weren't that many dragon types to work with, just like with Ghost. There were still like outside of Mega Evolutions, I think this is it. I think there's still exactly three dragon types that are dragon the whole way through. So Alolan's Exeggutor 57, Lapras at 56. Lapras has always been a Pokemon that I felt fit her vibe very well, which is another Pokemon that Lorelai now can't use if she is to be an Elite Four member. So maybe that's off the table. I don't know. Um, Dragonair 55, which I really like this a lot. I love the idea so much of her having a Dragonair on her team that is the level that it should evolve into Dragonite, but it just either doesn't respect her or she just hasn't like, oh, there's something about Claire that just isn't quite refined enough yet to let her own a Dragonite. So even though Dragonair is capable of evolving, it doesn't evolve yet. There won't be like a line of dialogue about that or anything, but there is still, I really like it when there's storytelling just by the levels of Pokemon. So yeah, I like that a lot. And then for Alligator, level 58, she is from the Johto region, so I think it's only fair that she has a Johto starter Pokemon, especially one that now has a Mega Evolution that becomes Dragon type. And then Kingdra, who is her typical ace at 59. And lastly, after you fight all those other gym leaders, basically in any order, but it can be the order I listed here. You can fight Adrian. Now you go back to Viridian City, and he actually has a full team of six that are a good number of levels higher. Um, I toyed with the idea of having the gym leaders kind of ramp up as you go, but I don't know. I something about the idea of them all being, roughly the same power level just felt good in my head as post game fights. But Adrian is a good amount stronger. He has a Gyarados at 63, a Xatu at 60, a Scyther at 59, taking that away from Thor. Now that Thor uses Scizor, Scyther is now up for grabs. They are different Pokemon. Uh, Dodrio was 62, a Togetic at 58. Now, Togetic is a lot weaker than the rest of these Pokemon here, but I don't know, I wanted him to have at least one other Johto Pokemon. I was kind of flipping between this and Noctowl, and I just felt like Togetic just had a little more flavor to it. It's at least another type. Since I'm going off modern mechanics, it is now a fairy type. So, it wouldn't have that type overlap with Dodrio. And also with if Tailwind is up, which I imagine his main strategy would be using Tailwind, Togetic, even with his 40 base speed, can still be fairly fast. And knowing Metronome or even Dazzling Gleam, just or even potentially with his Serene Grace ability having an increased chance of getting boosts from Ancient Power or something like that. I think there's a lot of fun things that can be done with Togetic, and maybe it can even be holding an Eviolite. Since it does evolve again, I think that could be fun. And then a Charizard as the ace. I originally had an idea to have Claire have both a Charizard and Feraligatr since she is from Johto, but now in Kanto. Um, but I ultimately scrapped that since I really like the idea of him having Charizard, mostly because like I think it could work on Claire's team, but since she could only have one Mega Evolution and Charizard and Feraligatr both can Mega Evolve into a Dragon type. I wasn't sure exactly which one I wanted to Mega Evolve. I also know that technically both could have Charizard since they have two different Megas, but I wanted to. I didn't want to have two different Charizards out there. That felt a little. No, that felt just a little weird. So I decided Charizard to be his ace. He is the eighth gym leader in Kanto. Um, and I think that's cool. All right, now on to the rematch teams. I really enjoyed making the rematch teams in the previous video, so I decided to continue doing that in this and probably all future videos in the series as well. So, kind of what I'm thinking here is after you do everything with the Kanto gym leaders. Maybe there's some other story bit with Neo Team Rocket um, in in Kanto. Maybe there's something even on the Sevi Islands. Maybe those come back. Um, but yeah, there will be opportunities for the player to level up their Pokemon if they need to, because I think the Johto gym leaders should follow a similar template that I gave the Kanto gym leaders in my previous video and have them all be around level 72 as their ace with a Mega Pokemon. So with Vincent here, he now has a Crobat at 71, a Clodsire at 70, and again, I am allowing regional variant evolutions and all other just regional evolutions in these rematch teams. Clodsire level 70, Tentacruel level 78, Sneasler level 70, Overquill 72, and Mega Venusaur 72. Now, two things about this. First, I completely acknowledge that Overquill does not actually evolve from regular Quillfish. I originally just had Quillfish here at 72, but that just didn't quite feel right. Because it also made sense for Overquill to be on a different team. But I was like, I feel like it'd be a little weird for someone else to have an Overquill just on their team, not even as their dual ace or anything, while he has a Quillfish that's just a regular Quillfish as his dual ace on his team. That just felt a little weird to me. Um, I don't know. I just really felt it fit his team overall better for that to be over Quill because not only do I think it just fits him better as an ace Pokemon, it also helps team comp there to be a dark type here, and I didn't want it to be just completely full of like regional forms because I wanted there to be either an Overquill or I guess a Alolan Muck maybe, but it would also feel a little weird for him to have a Lowland Muck when Muck is in the region. I don't know, just I think it's cleaner overall for him to have Overquill. But I did also have Tentacruel just to still have that poison and water type, kind of as reference to Quillfish. And then Mega Venusaur, at one point was a mega victory bell. Since there is Sprout Tower in Violet City, I think it'd be kind of cool to represent that on his team with Mega Victory Bell. But I ultimately decided to give him Venusaur since um, all of the other gym leaders or all of the other starter Pokemon are represented on gym leaders somewhere, and Mega Venusaur just didn't really fit anywhere else. Plus, I think it'd be fun if Elder Lee had a rematch team in Sprout Tower and he had Mega Victory Bell. So yeah, it was considered, but I put it somewhere else instead. Next, Brian with a Slow King, a fully evolved form of his Slowpoke at 71, Jinx at 70, Wobbuffet at 68, Espeon at 60, Farigiraf at 72, and Mega Alakazam at also 72. I considered Mega Slowbro, but I felt a little weird to have Slowking and Slowbro on the same team, maybe. And I don't know. No one else, even as far as I can tell, no one else in any Pokemon game has actually used Mega Alakazam, which is weird considering Sabrina did exist in a game that had Mega Stone. So I wanted, I feel like Mega Alakazam just fit better here anyway. Especially, fit his trainer class. Just, I think it works. Um, but yeah, for a giraffe existing was also another reason why I wanted Girafarig to be his ace in the first place. That way it can evolve. Next, Hana. She has Jumpluff 71, Sunflora 70, Exeggutor 68, Tangrowth level 70, and I'm headcanon this Tangrowth being a physical attacker. No one else on her team is going to be really good at dishing out physical attacks, and since Tangrowth's attack is almost as good as a special attack, and it knowing stuff like Rock Slide and Power Whip, and I think or an Earthquake, I think it works well as a physical attacker. Blossom still has the dual ace at 72 and Mega Meganium at 72. Yeah, Sunflora is a little underwhelming here. I know I just said that Quillfish was a little weak on Vincent's team, and then you have Sunflora here, but with the sun up, because I imagine she would mainly be a sun team, since most of her Pokemon here either have actually we don't even know what Mega Meganium has, but I'm pretty sure all the other five have Chlorophyll and or Leaf Guard. And then Sunflora has solar power. Yeah, I think is what it's called. Yeah. So all of them get some kind of boost from the sun. So I think Sunflora would either, you know, getting that boost from speed or special attack, either way, I think it still has a place here. Next, Zuki. This was definitely the most interesting team to Theorycraft. I've said before that I typically make the team first and then attach a trainer, the trainer icon to it, and I did do that here. Um, but once I made it I actually made it the Kimono Girl. Not every decision here made the perfect sense, but it it works out well enough. So we have Honchkrow at 71 and also Weavile at 71. I'm still keeping them both the same level. Alolan Persian at level 70. Alolan Muck at 68. That was originally Overquill, and I basically switched it with Alolan Muck on Vincent's team. But I didn't want Zuki to have Overquill. It just felt a little weird for her to have the evolved form of Quillfish when he just has a regular Quillfish. That just in my head didn't quite feel right. Umbreon has the dual ace at 72, and then Mega Tyranitar also at 72. I will admit that Alolan Muck and Tyranitar don't really fit her the best. Just something about them just don't really fit her vibe. Um, Maybe Alolan Raticate instead of Muck would have worked better, but I did want there to be a poison type on this team to help with fairy coverage. But it's fine. This is still a very, very good team. Like this might actually be as far as like the first six gym leaders. This might actually be the single best rematch team of those first six. Next, we have Bernie. He now has a Typhlosion at 71, Mac Cargo at 70, Paldean Tauros at 68, which is the Blaze breed, Flareon at 70, Magmortar at 72, and Mega Houndoom at 72. Once again, I wanted to emphasize that that Magmortar is kind of, a favorite of his. He does have a Houndoom that would be the obvious choice for Mega Evolution on his team already, but I also wanted him to level up his Magmortar to match it in levels. Ideally, it would have been Mega Typhlosion, but Typhlosion does not have a Mega form. It has a regional variant, which we'll also use later, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out for Typhlosion to have a Mega form. What can you do? And then Pacifica with Azumarill at 71, Mantine at 70, the other typed form of Paldean Tauros, the water one. I know there were other water types available, like Starmie, Golduck, even bringing back Artillery. There are a good amount of other water types I could have pulled from, but I don't know, just something about them both having the different Paldean Tauruses was that made a lot of sense in my mind, and also help with team composition since the rest of the team, the other three are all pure water types, that being Vaporeon at 70, Politoed 72, and then Mega Blastoise 72. And then Samson, who is I like the idea of the seventh and eighth gym leader rematches being slightly stronger than the rest. So we have a Lantern at 72, Raichu 71, Hisuian Electrode at 70. That could be a regular Electro, but mainly for team composition sake, just have an extra type in there. I went with Hisuian Electrode. If you feel it was weird that since Electrode exists in the region, kind of like how I was having that hang up with Muck and but Muck or Alolan Muck on Vincent's team, maybe that can be regular Electrode, but just in order to help with opposing ground types, Hisuian Electrode, I think, fits better here. And then Jolteon at 71, Electivire at 73, and then Mega Ampharos 74. So the seventh and eighth gym leader, they don't have a dual ace like the others had, where all the others have two at 72. They just have one that's stronger than the rest, and then the ace at 74. And then Sanders is a little stronger even with Donphan 73, Quagsire 72, Rhyperior 71, was there something very funny in my head about about him having Rhyperior be a level weaker than his Quagsire. I find that very funny. Mamoswine at 74, Gliscor at 74 as well, and then Mega Steelix at 75. And I think this team comp is very good for a ground gym leader. You have Don Fan coming out first with its sturdy ability, basically guarantees stealth rocks get set up, and then if it does survive a couple turns, it can still hit fairly hard with with earthquakes and other stuff. It can even get rid of any setup you do with with like traps and that kind of thing with rapid spin to get rid of those. Quagsire helps with both ice and water types with immunity to water and it being not weak to ice. Rhyperior is just very strong, and it can also help set up the sand. I imagine this being more or less a sand team. Rhyperior just gaining that special defense boost from the sand. Mamoswine being just another very good Pokemon that helps with grass types with its ice moves. Um, Gliscor also benefiting from the sand with its sand availability and also not being weak to grass definitely helps. And then Mega Steelix, the main reason why I want Gliscor to go out second to last, assuming it's just going in team order, is if Gliscor prioritizes setting up the sand, then that would help Mega Steelix's Sand Force ability. That would help its Steel Rocket ground moves deal a lot more damage. So I just think overall this team came together very well. Now, lastly, we have the Kanto rematches, and I did decide that I wanted the Kanto gym leaders to be even stronger than the current Johto gym leaders that I had. Since they were already given rematch teams in my previous video, I wanted them to be just a little bit stronger than what I gave them in that video as well. So we have Jane with Licky Licky at 73, Weird Ear at 71, the Dunsparce at 70, Ursaluna at 72, Porygon Z at 73. Porygon Z and Licky Licky are both dual aces or dual pseudo aces to kind of reference, them both at one point being her actual ace Pokemon. And then Mega Kangaskhan at 74. I was very deliberate about giving all of the Kanto gym leaders a Pokemon on their team that could Mega Evolve. So I think it's only fair that the Kangaskhan that was on her team became her ace that now Mega Evolves. The Dunsparce could easily be regular Tauros or Snorlax. I just liked the idea of the rest of her team that's not Kangaskhan being all regional evolutions. That just tickled my brain in a fun way. Uh, if you prefer this to be Tauros or Snorlax, especially since she is in she is a Kanto gym leader, yeah, maybe that's better, but um the fact that she does have it be where half her team at least started as Kanto Pokemon and half started as Johto Pokemon. I think that works, but if you want to emphasize Kanto more and switch out to Dunsparce for either Tauros or Snorlax, that's fine too. Evelyn now has Alolan Marowak at 73, Cursula at 71, regular Marowak at 70. There's still not enough ghost types to go around. But even if there was, I'm still not exactly sure if I would have given her. Just something in my head, I like her having two Marowaks. Miss Maggie is at 72, Hisuian Typhlosion. Still can't really be the ace since it can't Mega Evolve, but it's still a kind of a pseudo ace along with the Alolan Marowak, the other Ghost Fire type, and then her Mega Gengar. Dan, we have Alolan Dugtrio 73, Fortress 71, Berserker level 70, Alolan Sandslash 72, Magnezone 73, and then Mega Skarmory 74. I actually really like Mega Skarmory. I'm really curious what its ability is going to be because at the timing of this video, we still don't know the abilities of the Legend ZA Mega Pokemon. My guess is that it's going to be Tough Claws since it does have those talons that are the main thing that's emphasized in this Mega form. But regardless, I think Mega Skarmory is going to be a very good Pokemon. I think it fits this team very well. Next, Koichi. Now, Hitmontop being the only Hitmon on his team at 73. Surfetched 71. In my previous video, I had Surfetched on Adrian's team since I like the idea of him having a bird Pokemon that was not a flying type, but now it makes sense to be here. Regular Paldean Tauros at 70, just it's not the combat, it's not the what is combat? It's not the Blaze breed or the Aqua breed, it's regular Tauros. In my previous video, I had him have Blaze breed Tauros. Since he had Poliwrath, I like the idea of him having a water fighting and a fire fighting type, but in this case, regular Paldean Tauros also works, which does potentially lend more credence to Jane having regular Tauros, just to represent every Tauros, just because that's fun. Um, but it doesn't have to be like that. Poliwrath 72, Annihilate 73, and then Mega Heracross 74. Once again, I really, really appreciate them having a fighting type from Johto that can Mega Evolve to fit on this team. Thor, we have Pinsir 73, Yanmega 71, Shuckle 70, Venomoth 72, Cleavor 73, and Mega Scizor 74. So Pinsir and Cleavor both have the same base set total of 500. And then with Mega Scizor, kind of all parties, all members of like that kind of family of Pokemon. Like a lot of people kind of consider Pinsir, Heracross, and Scyther to be counterparts because Pinsir and Scyther were definitely intended to be counterparts. And then when Heracross came along, Heracross and Pinsir were even more related since they have the same stat spread, just the individual stats are moved around. Pinsir is more physically bulky, whereas Heracross is more especially defensive for some reason. But then Cleavor, Scizor, and Scyther all still have 500 base stat total. So if we include Dan, Koichi, Thor, and Adrian, all what is that? One, no, wait, sorry. One, two, three, four. Yeah, all five of them are here. So I think that's cool. Next, Brock's rematch. The main thing being the added Hisuian Arcanine. So we have Golem 72, Sudowoodo 71, Hisuian Arcanine 70, Omastar and Kabutops 73, and now Mega Aerodactyl 74. Once again, it is just a little awkward that Adrian in a previous video had Mega Aerodactyl as his ace. Like the only other option available for a rock Mega Evolution was Tyranitar, but I liked Tyranitar being on the dark one since there was no other fire. It's gonna be a little complicated because there was no other fire Mega Evolution available outside of Mega Charizard. So the fire one had to have Houndoom, which meant the only other dark one was Tyranitar. He had to have Mega Aerodactyl. Hope that made sense. And I think the teams overall worked out very nicely anyway. I like him having all three fossils. It just feels good to have. And then Claire, I really like this team a lot. Since once again there weren't like that many dragon types to work with. I still think I filled her team with Pokemon that have like legendary or like just kind of a vibe that I think kind of fits the like mythicalness of Dragon also fit her very well. So start leading off with Alolan Exeggutor at 73, yeah, Lapras 72, Arcanine 71. First, I like the idea of her having a fire, grass, water core with Exeggutor, Lapras, Arcanine. Arcanine is literally the legendary Pokemon. Like it has this mythical status, and also it can learn Dragon Pulse, so it fits right in. Plus, it's kind of cool that he has Hisuian Arcanine, and then she has regular Arcanine. And then it is a Dragonite now at 74, the same level as her Kingdra at 74, and then her Mega Feraligatr at 75, which is now part Dragon. And lastly, Adrian, who is actually a couple levels even above Claire, who has Gyarados 76, Xatu 74, Scyther 73, Dodrio 75, Togekiss 76, Mega Charizard Y 77. There was at one point a version of this group where Adrian had Yanmega and Thor had Scyther. So he had the Thor had Scyther, Cleavor, and Scizor. But ultimately, I think this just feels a little better to me. Um, and yeah, I like the idea of him being just a good amount stronger than any of the other gym leaders in either region. Probably not as strong as maybe like around the same level, but not slightly weaker than the rematch of the fourth Elite Four member, but definitely, at least I would say 7 levels weaker than the champion, but still kind of in a similar ballpark of levels of like the elite trainers. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down below what you thought of any of these teams. Are there any changes you would have made? Are there any Pokemon I completely forgot about? Do you like the ordering of the Johto gym leaders that I made here? Do you agree or disagree with any of the changes to the routing of the region kind of as you go? Yeah, what are some teams that you would make? Please let me know down below those. I like, watching you guys theory craft teams like that as well. Um, as well as let me know of any other, video ideas you want me to cover going forward because I intend to do one of these videos for every single region. So that's, 9 videos, but who knows what I'm going to do after that. So, let me know your ideas down below. So with that, I will see you all next time.